Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 166.
Yeah, learning each day, not sitting and reading books, but going to the field and see the things, most bad fi, and learning from that. So yeah, lifelong learning is necessary for everybody.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Rene, sir, thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So tell people about yourself. Where are you at? And what are you doing in the Wi-Fi space?
So my name is Rene Kriedemann. It's just a German name because I'm from Germany. I'm located in Berlin,
Okay.
the capital of Germany. Everybody should know, and Berlin's a place to be. Maybe you heard about that.
I've been there.
So yeah, I live in Berlin, and I'm running my own little Wi-Fi design office in Berlin, with the exception of the summertime. During the summertime, I'm having a branch in the Vienna region, but on the Hungarian side.
And why that breakdown? Is that typical over there, or is that just something you decided to do?
It has to do with my family. I'm married with a Hungarian woman. So, and we go to the family, grandma, grandpa.
Yeah.
such thing.
So
yeah.
you just close shop down there in Germany and then travel and then spend a few months running things over there?
Not a few months, a few weeks. As
okay.
long as the summer break of my daughter it is 6 weeks, something around that.
Oh, wow, very cool.
And we stay there for 5 weeks, and of course I couldn't afford such
the business isn't that successful.
Yeah. So I'm running projects from that place too. Yeah, they also have internet there.
Yeah,
so
it's everywhere, I guess. So they have.
No, that's not true. Even in Germany, we have problems with that.
So there's radio frequencies everywhere. You're saying, huh?
Yeah. The problem is they prefer cable in Germany.
Well,
So we don't have too much wireless ISPs in Germany. That's
interesting.
Some kind of a niche market, and there are some people doing it on their own.
Okay.
Running it on a private base and as a hobby.
Yeah.
But real professional wireless ISPs, it's a kind of niche market here in Germany.
Well, with that being the case, how did you get your start in Wi-Fi? Where did that come about?
Yeah, that's a long story.
Well,
so my first my first contact to wireless LAN technology was in 96.
Okay.
So the last century, and it was my first employment in the networking area. Just a year before, I changed from being an AS400 application engineer, EBM.
Okay.
Some of the older colleagues may know or heard about that. So I changed to the networking industry, and a year later, I had my first contact to that product, wireless LAN, wireless local area network, and this came from Proxim.
Okay.
Proxim in California. Some may have heard of that. And some years later, I think in 99, I joined Proxim as a manufacturer.
Okay.
And started to work for them. Running the German-speaking countries as a channel manager. And during that time, I started to be the only man on the continent. Because the other one were located in UK as normally. Yeah, and after that, uh, I decided to found my own Wi-Fi design office, and this was in 2003. Uh, because I was very excited about the
Yeah.
technology from the beginning on, and at the time around 2002, 2003, I started to look for ways to go ahead with professional services for wireless local area
Was
networks.
that a
So,
difficult process
uh,
in Germany to just kinda start your whole own
of
thing? Was
course,
that
yeah,
scary?
I think it was, yeah, I think it was difficult. Even today, I'm saying that especially the German market is a little behind the rest of the
Okay.
world. Um, to found all the reasons, I think we don't have enough time for that. Of course, we have Wi-Fi everywhere in private networks as we know it,
Yeah.
but in the enterprise area, if you don't have any um, special reason to implement wireless LAN, serious German network administrator will not implement wireless
Ah.
LAN.
So there has to be a real
So
hard push to go out of their way to
yeah,
all that.
of course, in the meantime, and that's what I like in the moment. In the meantime, this is changing because even these backward minded
Yeah, yeah.
networking admins uh, now see that they will not have too much devices with an Ethernet port,
Yeah.
too much IT
So it's getting
devices with an
forced
Ethernet
on them
port.
then,
So
huh?
yeah, so I have to say thank you to Steve and all the other guys making these kind of devices possible.
Changing, yeah,
So
giving you, job
yeah,
security.
they changed the game not only in
Yeah,
Germany. It took longer in Germany
okay.
to take over. Yeah, but yeah, I started in 2003, and of course, even at that time, I had customers, and this were located in the logistic area.
Okay.
So, and for them, Wi-Fi was a business critical from the beginning on.
So in the logistics
And
area, what
there I
kind of
could
companies are you working with then?
logistic companies. So there are the operators of the
Okay,
networks, and of course they need expertise because for them it is critical that the Wi-Fi runs, even in the earlier days. And we shouldn't forget that the logistics are the inventors at the end. They drove the process. They invented Wi-Fi. They brought it to the market. The second step was to bring it to the private household. Yeah, but before of that, Wi-Fi was in the warehouses, and they implemented it there
okay.
first. And I made the first business there, and I started even from the beginning on in 2003. After founding my little second wave engineering office, I started with Ekahau
Okay.
version 1,
So what are you
2.4
Yeah,
gigahertz
yeah.
only.
So what are you, doing now? Is it the whole scope of everything from the consulting to the actual implementation of the networks?
Yeah. So the business developed a little bit, lucky wise, and together with reselling Ekahau, which I also started to do
Okay.
with some partners here in Germany. We learned that it could be a good idea to teach people uh, about using such Wi-Fi or wireless LAN, WLAN designing products, and we created first a 1 day training, then a 2 day training, and yeah, so that means today I have three parts to do business. One is creating my own projects, planning
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, and doing some Wi-Fi audits, reselling
Mhm.
Ekahau. It's not
Yeah.
unimportant. And yeah, being a
Yeah.
trainer for Wi-Fi design.
Is there any of those that you like the most or that you get the most satisfaction
Hmm.
from?
No,
Okay.
no, no. I think if I only would be a trainer, I couldn't tell the stories from the
Yeah,
field.
that's a good point.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your typical week, what is that looking like? What's the breakdown between being in your office, training, out in the field?
You may know that one training for the EK House certified survey engineer is 4 days. So
Yeah.
there's no split for the week.
You're all in on
So
that, yeah.
if I have a training, the week is
Yeah.
done. At the end, just 1 day left for
Yeah.
preparation or wrap off. And if I don't have an ECSE training, I would say 50% for
Okay.
project and 50% for sales or
A
resales.
and how
Yeah,
much
that's
traveling
it.
are you doing out of Germany? Are you mostly in country?
Yeah, I'm traveling around the DACH region, which means Germany, Austria, and
Okay.
Switzerland. So even the Hungarian office is besides the
Yeah.
Austrian borderline. So it's
Yeah.
Austria.
So if there was, someone interested in getting involved in training, what would you, encourage them in? What skills do they need to develop?
Yeah, first they need networking knowledge based. That's the
Okay.
base. And yeah, what I experienced during the trainings from the attendees is that the main problem going into the wireless LAN area is that these guys are mostly IT people,
Okay.
of course. So they don't have any idea about radio
Yeah.
waves, or they believe they don't have. At the end, using cables, there's not so much difference between using cables or running without
Yeah.
cables. So from the physics, but um, what they all don't know is something about buildings, so or
Yeah.
architecture. And this is what I experienced myself over the time, that I started to become a little better knowledge with architecture
Mhm.
or building structure or things like
Because
that.
of the,
So I learned there a lot.
because of the behavior of the radio frequencies through the building or
Of
yeah.
course, yeah. The building structure is creating the loss
Yeah.
for the radio waves, and I learned a lot about buildings. So if I see a photograph today, I could say, yeah, you may have that problem or that problem. Photograph from a building, yeah, or it may be without
Yeah.
problems. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So and studying the floor plans, understanding the floor
Yeah.
plans, yeah,
So that's one of those
that's
things.
that's completely new
Yeah.
to them,
Yeah.
and it was a learning process for me too, because I'm an IT guy from ground.
In your trainings, what's some other common things that you're seeing trip up people as they're beginning to learn Wi-Fi?
Yeah, maybe that's a little special in German. Most of the EKH users tend to doing classical site survey based on the access point on a stick.
Okay.
So they spend a lot of effort to do these kind of measurements before they install the network. And I found that should be my first task, to teach them to use the tools to create building models and simulate Wi-Fi before they start to do a access point on a stick surveys. So that's the main thing, I believe.
Interesting. So
I have experienced some differences between the Germans and the Swiss guys. The Swiss guys tend to use the model and simulation tools a little more.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
go back to your younger self, Rene. What's something you
Hmm.
would give advice to yourself with going back and saying, okay, here's where you're going to go in life?
Hmm. You mean what I would do
Yeah,
different
or what would you tell yourself?
if I could go back?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would do something different. Maybe I would recommend myself or my younger self to go behind more specific education and maybe doing some certificates, because in the past I did the UC way. You may
Yeah.
know UC from
Ekahau, yeah.
Ekahau. I went through my career without any certificate.
Okay.
I have to say that this changed last end of
Yeah.
last year. So I started a process to create to get certificates from the CWNP organization.
Very cool.
So before of that, I didn't own just the Ekahau stuff.
Yeah. Very good. What's something you did right early on, you think, that helped you?
I think founding my own company was a good choice. Um, the reason for that is before of having this own business, I couldn't decide to what technical problem or to what technical field I will focus.
Okay.
So, and that's why it was a good decision, because I decided I'm interested to the wireless LAN technology and I will try to create services around that. And I couldn't do that inside a system integrator or inside other companies at that time, and even today it would be difficult. So doing that focused, and the founding the own company was a good decision.
Now that's a
Yeah.
big deal to do that. Is that something you would recommend to everybody, to specific types of
Yes.
people?
Not to
Yeah.
everybody. Of course, not everybody should or is able to run a business from his own. Even I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. I'm just,
But you got
I'm
freedom.
just, yeah, yeah. But yeah, you said it. It gives you the freedom first to decide where you want to set your
Mhm.
focus on,
But you have all the risk too.
and and of course you have the risk. Yeah, but yeah, no risk, no fun.
I like it. So
Yeah,
what's investing in yourself as a wireless LAN professional mean to you?
yeah, learning each day, not sitting and reading books, but going to the field
Mhm.
and see the things most bad
Yeah.
fi and learning
Yeah.
from that. So yeah,
Just doing and getting involved.
lifelong learning is necessary for everybody, and I'm not the youngest guy. I'm in my 50s now. So, but even now I have to learn. So, and I started this certification process.
Yeah,
Why? Just to level up myself.
very cool. Is there
Yeah,
something in the industry that frustrates you that you wish you could change?
of course. Yeah. Uh, I heard some colleagues, and I will try to find a little different reason. Of course, I always have architectural guys which like to hide access points. Yeah, they don't like to see
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
They want hide them. Yeah, but I describe each time, if I describe a mounting position for an access point in my design reports, I say it has to be free
Yeah.
viewable. So that's the main conflict. But there's a different thing I'm frustrated on, and I try to change it as far as I'm able to do. Um, we as Wi-Fi design engineers should be involved much earlier in the process of developing complete building infrastructures.
Mm,
So if we plan a Wi-Fi for a new created office building, they always ask too
yeah.
late. And I think this should be changed. We have to be involved much earlier into the
The
process.
developers are still
Yeah,
thinking of Wi-Fi as an afterthought as opposed to
yeah. They think we can do it later on. But no, they don't
yeah
think about it.
at all.
So
Yeah.
that's the problem. They don't think about it at all. And just before everything is ready,
Yeah.
they got the advice.
Maybe.
Maybe we may need some kind of, we heard about that there's a new kind of infrastructure for offices without wires.
Wow, who knew? So how are
Yeah,
you
and
how are
this,
you helping to change it? I mean, do you just try to build relationships, get the word out there?
yeah, you have to that's a very a difficult process. You have to find people in the how should I call it? I know it in German. The designers of buildings, they for all the technical stuff inside,
Mhm.
they have that's a special
Yeah.
area. And the data cabling is inside, and you have to meet planners of data cabling, and you have to get them involved into the Wi-Fi area too. And that's a problem, I think, which is special in Germany, that these guys are regarding wireless very often are very late
Yeah.
and backward
Mhm.
thinking and not forward thinking. What would I expect it from
Yeah.
these people?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's frus- that is
Yeah.
frustrating.
Uh,
Yeah.
go back again in time. Mistake you made that you think you really learned something from.
To be honest, I cannot remember that I make a real mistake. Of course, I make mistakes in
Yeah.
projects. Of course, maybe very often, and I don't know because nobody asked me later on. Because I'm just the designer. I do the
Yeah.
design, and they very often I give away my report, and nobody
Yeah.
says anything about that. I even don't know if they create a network based on my plan, or if they
Yeah.
create a network based on any
Yeah.
plan, or without a plan. I don't know. But I made mistakes. I had one project where I decided just to do the building model and simulate everything. And the problem was that the building structure was different than I got the description from. So, and I made a big mistake. I sold a lot of access points. So, not I
Yeah.
sold them, but I
Yeah. Yeah.
designed a lot of access point there, and they didn't had a real fixed infrastructure in there. And so, and later on, we discussed to bring down the number of access points to a third of the to a
Yeah.
third of
One
the.
third of them. Wow.
So this was a big mistake I made in the past, but it was because of lack of
Yeah.
information. So
So get as much
yeah,
information as possible, I guess, right?
that's true. That's what I learned from. So, and maybe even if I will do not too much measurement, if the building is existing, try to visit this.
Mm.
Try to do a site
Yeah.
survey. Um, not spend too much time with measurements. If you see that your building model may work, but try to see the site.
Very cool. Is there a project you're most proud of that you've been involved in?
Yeah, a 23-story building here in
Oh,
Berlin.
wow.
Each time I'm passing it, I'm enjoying
I
myself.
did that. I did that.
Yeah, it is. It is based on concrete, so we need some access
Yeah,
points
yeah.
there, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it, really.
Very cool. So, favorite piece of equipment you're using these days? You could say Sidekick, but if there's any other equipment.
Yeah, of course, I'm using it, and I'm a fan of that. and but I have some other tools available too. I like to work with an iPad.
Okay.
So, and if you look for software analyzing Wi-Fi on iPads or iOS
Yeah.
devices, it's quite difficult. Everybody is talking about Arian Granada's software on macOS, and I heard that it started on iOS first. Yeah, it's a pity
Yeah.
that it couldn't go forward. But I found a little product, which makes an spectrum analyzer
Okay.
from an iOS device. And this is Wi-Fi, Oscium Wi-Fi 5.
Okay.
And I like that because I have it with me all the
Yeah.
time. And if I'm traveling, I check out the Wi-Fi and make comments
Yeah.
on it, maybe on Twitter.
Yeah. Share with the community. Any
Yeah,
bitty last bit of advice you'd share with the community on how to grow as Wi-Fi pros?
yeah. Collecting knowledge. Try to meet people which are experienced a little longer in the industry, and reading books. Why not?
Yeah.
Because that's the classical way. I learned everything about Wi-Fi from one book from a German author. It is called Wireless LANs.
There you go.
So that's the first step, and something I learned from my contacts with the American colleagues is creating a kind of
Hmm.
community. That's a little slow in the German speaking region. That my feeling. So if I would made a statistic about the Twitter followers I have, most of them are from
Okay.
US. So Twitter is not very popular here, and I think that's what I would give as an advice, especially to the German-speaking colleagues, that we should try to get together.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, and there's a reason why I start to talk about that. I created a little group on Slack,
Okay.
a German-speaking user group for Eco-Haushaltssurvey.
And what's that? You want to say that in
So,
German so the German speakers can find it easy?
it is a Slack channel.
Okay.
So, and it is called NGESS. So, it's the abbreviation for Nutzergruppe
Okay.
Eco-Haushaltssurvey.
Cool.
So, user
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So besides that, how else can people get in touch with you or follow you if they'd like to?
Yeah, I created a website,
Okay.
secondwave.de. And I'm using Twitter because there was there was a colleague from US giving me the advice you should do that,
Was his name Keith?
and I started. It was Keith, yeah, of course.
Tells everybody that.
Yeah, the discussion was funny because I said, I'm too old for such kind of social media stuff, and yeah, and he convinced me to start that, and I like it
Yeah,
at the end.
very cool. Well,
So yeah,
wonderful. Well, Rene, thank you for spending time. Appreciate it.
yeah,
Have a good week.
welcome. Thanks
Yeah,
for having
thank
me.
you, sir. Bye.
10 Talks.
I'm going to talk about how 11AX multi-user MIMO is different from what we've just experienced in Wave 2. My name is Srikanth. I come from India, NanoCell Networks. My contact details are out there. A quick recap. If you've used Wave 2 multi-user MIMO allows an AP to kind of send data to up to 4 clients simultaneously. So you would think that it's great because we have the same waiting time, same preamble time, and so, hey, we should get much more out of it. And if you've been running some throughput tests, you would know that that's not always what they claim as advantages of multi-user MIMO. By the way, it's only available on downlink as of now in Wave 2. So what are some challenges and how is 11AX trying to address that? So that's my kind of sort of objective. So quick note, the first thing that happens in multi-user MIMO is something called channel sounding. You might have seen a lot of NDPs going out on the air, NDP announcements rather than NDPs. What they do is get clients to get ready for measuring, send a null data packet, and then the clients send their beamforming reports. But all these reports are quite big packets, and they have to be polled individually except for the first one. So what I call is this polled serial feedback is a big drawback because these have preambles, and then these are big frames. So the whole advantage of multi-user MIMO to a certain extent gets nullified by this very expensive sounding process. People have done a lot of estimates. I often get the question, how often should sounding be done? Lots of different answers, and you can go on and analyze that, but it's a very expensive process. So that's one drawback. The second, which is not, again, too obvious, is that we get data out very fast from the AP. Data for multiple clients go out quite fast in parallel, right? But then what about the acknowledgements? They again have to be polled. So these block ACK requests have to be sent individually, and all of these are short frames, but they have preambles attached to them. So they all take the SIFS times, the preamble times, etc. Again, a big drawback. So unless you have a really large size packet to be sent over MU-MIMO, all these things pull you down, primarily because you have to spend time on these things, okay? There's another small drawback, which I will probably summarize here, is that these things I've talked about, expensive sounding process, and I write this for the high density because when 11AX was being formulated, one of the questions asked was, don't we have multi-user MIMO to handle that? And here is a short note on why it's not the best fit as of today. It's got an expensive sounding processes. There are client measurements which have to be done very quickly. SIFS after you send the NDP, many clients get it wrong because it's a very complex process, a lot of matrix algebra, etc. Okay? No uplink mechanisms to support sending 802.11 or TCP ACKs if you run TCP traffic. And of course, the AP spends a lot of effort. It's quite a laborious process, okay? So 11AC MU-MIMO is definitely not a fit for high density short packets, which is one of the major use cases brought out when people looked at what's wrong with current Wi-Fi, okay? And just to illustrate, this is the whole process in summary. You have sounding, and then the first guy comes up with a feedback, and then you have to poll each of them individually, right? And then, of course, this goes on in parallel. So we were all sold by this parallel transmission, but nobody tells us about this, and also the ACK. I couldn't fit the ACKs into this slide, but you got the essence of it from previous slide, okay? Few other notes on multi-user MIMO. You don't get multi-user MIMO working smoothly because if you have a 4x4, you'd be happy to fit 3 users in. That's the way of that processing as it stands today, right? So it's not going to work very smoothly as claimed. It works only in high SNR, so it does not provide any coverage benefits or range benefits, okay? And of course, I talked about these two things, okay? And of course, you need more than one client, MU-MIMO capable client, if you want to get advantage of MU-MIMO, okay? So what's 11AX doing about that? So many of you heard about 11AX and said that, oh, there is OFDMA. Yes, OFDMA is introduced on downlink and uplink, and everybody knows that you have these small units of bandwidth, right? But what is also there is the multi-user MIMO, which was originally proposed only for downlink, now also gets fitted into uplink, and more importantly, they address those problems that I just mentioned, okay? That's very important. Don't forget that we have the old style OFDM and MIMO, that's going on, that's allowed, okay? And when we talk about MU in 11AX, we talk about 3 options, MU-MIMO, OFDMA, and the combination of OFDMA plus MU-MIMO, okay? So what do they do differently to make it better? Let me summarize and then maybe illustrate. First thing is that when you send downlink MU-MIMO to multiple clients, one of the problems was that the ACKs were not coming back efficiently. So now guess what? We can use what we call uplink OFDMA. In summary, what it means that you can send ACKs in parallel without the individual polling or waiting time. So that's very efficient. The next was sounding process. How do we get the feedbacks efficiently? Again, using OFDMA, you can get those feedbacks very efficiently in parallel. So this is all parallel. All the overheads related to the transmissions are going on in parallel. And we don't have just DLMU scheme as in 11AC. We have an uplink MU, which means that your TCP ACKs can also go on efficiently. So all these things make MU-MIMO in general much more effective, I would say, in 11AX as compared to 11AC. So let me summarize. On the sounding part, you send the NDP announcement, NDP, a common trigger which will allow people to send their feedback rather in parallel. And if you have large feedbacks, you can actually use just one sounding sequence and send those in parallel. So that's very important that you can get your feedback in parallel from multiple users. The second is, what about data? So when you send downlink multi-user MIMO data, you can again send a trigger piggyback on the data, and the acts can come in OFDMA in parallel. So which means that you got rid of the feedback inefficiencies as well as the ACK inefficiencies, both by piggybacking or sending a trigger which will allow multiple people to send it back, okay? And what about TCP ACKs? You can still use that uplink OFDMA if the TCP ACKs are short enough packets and you don't want to do a uplink MU-MIMO, you can send this over the OFDMA. So the combination of DL MU-MIMO along with OFDMA for all the uplink inefficiencies is probably one of the biggest, what we say, differences from the 11AC multi-user MIMO, okay? What about uplink multi-user MIMO? It looks tougher, but uplink multi-user MIMO, generally simultaneous transmissions from multiple users, is again preceded by a trigger frame which clearly tells the clients what to do, and it so happens that uplink MU-MIMO has a lot of similarity to the normal MIMO, primarily because it's just multiple streams of data coming from different clients to the AP, and the AP just has to be able to handle those multiple streams, which is what we were doing anyway in the MIMO case, okay? So it's not very different from a processing framework. The only challenges, of course, which are new are the synchronization and power-related challenges, okay? So we have DL MU-MIMO with all the efficiencies. We also have uplink MU-MIMO as and when you need it. So I think that the logic which needs to be present, typically in an AP, because all MU in 11AX, remember MU has 3 options. All MU in 11AX is controlled by the AP. So nobody can transmit just like that. They have to get a trigger. And so the AP has a lot of power to decide whether it's going to do OFDMA, whether it's going to do multi-user MIMO, or it's going to do a combo, okay? And who is going to get what resources, what MCS, all these are primarily decided by the AP. So AP is getting much more powerful, but I think if 11AX MU-MIMO comes into play, we will find that 11AC MU-MIMO will just be shelved, primarily because we're doing a much more efficient job of doing MU-MIMO, okay? So my last slide is inspired by Keith and many others. We also do a summit in India called Wi-Fi Knowledge Summit. So if you want to plan a trip, feel free, look it up. We have one in March 9th. This is the 5th edition of the summit. All presentations are archived. So please feel free to visit. Invitation for you, okay? Thanks, Keith. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @WirelessLANPros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter @KeithRParsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.